We're waiting on Aaron Rodgers, you know, and trust me, I don't wake up saying I can't wait to talk about Aaron Rodgers again today. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely not.
Sorry, folks.
Right. And I get it. I get it that so many people out there are sick and tired of hearing about him. And the only reason why we're talking about him still is because of how many teams he is affecting by not giving an answer right now to whether he's going to play this year or to whom he's going to announce that he's playing in their town. We're waiting on it. And it's not just any franchises either, with all due respect to other franchises in the NFL. There's no bigger fan base. Now, the fan base is maybe just as large. I'd say that just so I don't get any pushback. Than the Pittsburgh Steelers. Chris Brockman knows, okay? Chris Brockman knows firsthand.
I love this story.
Way back when we were just a little old podcast. A little podcast that could. And the folks at NFL Network executive producer wing so into the show that they gave us a sound booth and a shower curtain,
that was like
and
this,
say that's your production.
It was like this big.
Oh, they were very supportive, or he was very supportive. But at any rate, look at us now.
Hi.
At any rate,
or I know because that's where I'm from.
No, listen, I shouldn't do that, but I just did because I'm highly caffeinated. And so, listen, we were just a little podcast that could, and we decided, you know what we're going to do? We're going to send a football player to the red carpet of the Oscars, and they're going to conduct interviews on the behalf of the Rich Eisen Show, and we'll mix, because again, we just want to mix entertainment and sports. We chose Hines Ward for the job. Yep. The only people who knew Hines Ward was going was Chris Brockman, who was producing it, me, who helped set it up with Hines Ward, who knew about it, and then the Oscars people who
when I went to go get the credential, they were like, why is the NFL here? And I'm like, can I have my lanyard, please? And
it was questioned you?
And it was a hit. It was a hit. Nobody knew
it was happening.
But the reason why we mentioned is you told this story. You can go ahead and finish it. You looked up. You saw at the very top of the...
So you get there super early at the Oscars red carpet. It's like 11 a.m., noon, local time. And you're just kind of walking. You're taking in the scene. You see, oh, cool, there's AC Slater over there and Maria Menounos over there and Ryan Seacrest walked by. And then all of a sudden they had bleachers for an audience for the red carpet to cheer, whatever. It's cool. And then at the top row, there was like a half dozen people. Hines Ward, Steeler fans. They had terrible towels and hats and jerseys, and they were cheering because they saw Hines Ward.
But they had terrible towels and jerseys
not
going
knowing,
to the Oscars.
Not knowing.
Going to the Oscars dressed that way.
Yes, they were dressed that way.
That still makes no sense.
It was the most crazy thing I've ever seen.
And I understand there's cheeseheads and there's 12s and there's, all that stuff. Every single one of those people right now is wondering who's going to be the quarterback throwing to their new $30 million a year wide receiver. That's such a non-Steelers move to make. Let's spend $30 million a year on a wide receiver with no plan at quarterback. And every single minute that Rodgers says, I don't know, it's just rankling them. The Giants have a huge fan base as well. The Vikings we're skull chanting. And they're also like waiting. Unless they're not. At least they got J.J. McCarthy. The Steelers have got Mason Rudolph, and the Giants have Tommy Cutlets at present. They could use this guy as basically. Or a guy, similar to the guy who was winning MVPs before he went to the Jets and ripped up his Achilles, and on occasion last year showed flashes of his MVP self. They could use that guy. And the longer he goes without saying anything, he pisses off the fans. And the question is, what about the front offices? And Mike Mayock's going to join us later in hour 3, and we'll ask him, what would you do? Albert Burr is going to join us in just less than 10 minutes right now to tell us what anybody knows about what Rodgers is thinking. And he could at any point in time make an announcement. Maybe even in the middle of the next sentence I'm about to say. We don't know. We're all waiting. And so put it all together. And if you're in the front office, do you say you've got a certain amount of time, otherwise we're out? Sort of like Omar Khan, the general manager of the Steelers, or the general manager of the Giants, Joe Shane, sort of entering the apartment and like Kramer screaming, I'm out of this contest. Because to be very honest, what they're doing, waiting for him, might be the reason why they're out. You understand what I'm saying?
Wow.
Hey, I'm just trying to be like the episode, talking about something without saying the words. Honestly, like, what are we doing here? And so, I don't know what the front officers are thinking. They're not going to say anything. The fans, we're hearing from them. What about potential new teammates? Well, Cam Heyward gave you some interesting advice on this front. Insight. It's what he had to say on his pod when, I guess, the subject matter of whether he would call up Rodgers and talk to him about what's going on with him and invite him to make a decision and come to the Steelers. This was his response.
I ain't doing that darkness retreat. I don't need any of that crap. Like, either you want to be a Pittsburgh Steeler or you don't. That's simple. That's the pitch. Like, if you want me to recruit, that's the recruiting pitch. You know, Pittsburgh Steelers, if you want to be part of it, so be it. If you don't, no skin on my back. Not just football with Cam Heyward, who last I saw was on the other side of Adam Ray in a makeshift New Orleans kitchen on Bert Kreischer's show when he was making something thoroughly inedible.
Also, that's about the most unfriendly you've ever seen.
Yes.
Cam, ever.
That's a Walter Payton Man of the Year who is a jolly
and he's
giant.
Usually but he's like, no. Like,
well, I mean, again, he must be hearing about it. And this is also the end of his career here. Mm-hmm. His window is shutting. He knows his clock is ticking. He's in the trenches, man.
And he's got to figure he's got two other Hall of Famers potentially on that defense with him. And like you said, time is not on their side.
But in particular, this guy, he's the one who Derrick Henry's being rolled downhill into.
Facts.
He's the one that's trying to hold the line as everybody grounds it out against the Steelers. He's the one who's trying to lead in the locker room. He's the one with a C on his chest. He's the one that's trying to win before his next act of his life. And it's a big difference whether Aaron Rodgers is coming or not for him.
Yeah.
I don't know what would move Rodgers right now. I don't know. Nobody does. But I just thought it was fascinating that a member of the Steelers, who I've been saying, hey, this is why I think it's a fit for Rodgers in Pittsburgh, is there is somebody of his age group, a contemporary, who understands what it's like when there's a clock ticking. He's got, both of them have gray at the end of their beards, right? Both of them are, you know, I don't think I'm telling any tales out of school. I think going to Canton. I think when it's all said and done, Cam's going to have one of those days too.
For sure.
And that's part of the reason why I think it's a fit. I don't know what's going on. Nobody does either. But the longer it goes on, the more people will just like not care. And there could be a lot of people checked out in the middle of our open right now. I hope not, because we've got a great show in store. And there's a kid, Tyler Shuck. He could be the answer here. All of this stuff where we're sitting here waiting on Rodgers and Rodgers chooses somewhere else and the other team that doesn't get him chooses Tyler Shuck, and he could be a revelation. The way the kid spun it at the combine, the way and the way that he ran it at the combine, you know, he was the only quarterback in his group who ran it, and we're going to talk to him about running the 40, and he ran it twice. As a matter of fact, he ran it, and he ran it pretty damn fast, too, and he played to the crowd. Like, he gave, like, sort of an are you not entertained arm movement as he was running through the 40-yard dash line into the end zone towards the fans. And then we had to wait for him to catch his breath because there was no one else running it. We had to wait another minute or two. Okay, you ready to run again, Tyler? And then he did it. And then he spun it. And then he's talking to Kurt Warner afterwards. soaking it in. And maybe he's a guy that can just be drafted at the end of the first round, top of the second. If he slips to the third, you get him. And then all of a sudden, this entire conversation of like, was Rodgers coming or not is a moot point. And at some point, maybe a front office turns to that concept of let's go ahead and get the kid. If you're the Giants, let's just trade up to 1. Let's just go ahead and do that. Rodgers, you want to go to Pittsburgh? You want to go to Minnesota? Fine. We're just going to go and trade up to 1. And you have to have that conversation right now. And we'll talk to Mike Mayock about it in hour 3. You have to have the conversation with John Mara. Again, no cameras on in this meeting room this time around. And just say, John, or Mr. Mara, or Mr. Son of the Duke. Listen. Let's trade all this draft capital. We think Cam Ward's the guy. You're gonna but we need to go with some bumps and bruises here. Are we all cool? Because I've got a wife and kids. I got a mortgage. I've got the kids love going to school here in North Jersey. I don't want to make this move and think that you're just gonna hold it against me. But we want to make this bet here. We can't wait for Rodgers. Let's go. Let's get Cam Ward. Let's sign Russ. Let's go to work. That's a plan. More than just waiting around and then someone else signs Russ and somebody else trades up to 1. And now you're out of luck? Now you're really doing what Kramer was doing before he was out. Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.